Hello, my name is SkylerBollar, and this is week 1 of my video log through the Gilman Scholarship. Today I'm going to talk about what's been going on this last week. Mostly just going to focus on my trip out here. The flights were kind of crazy, so just give me a second and I'll regale you with all the spicy details. So, while I'll do another video that looks at pre-departure and the stuff you want to do pre-departure and a few other bits of information, and I'll also do some videos about the Gilman Scholarship itself, I kind of want to keep you guys on track with what's going on with me as the weeks go by, and when I have less to talk about the different types of study and just my reactions to some of these things that are happening in England, which will probably be about a month from now, then I'll go into things that are more focused on the scholarship itself, or other bits of information like what to do when you're planning to go, pre-departure information, or some additional fun little travel details, or other things that I find interesting or engaging. So our first flight was out of the Boise airport and going to Dallas-Fort Worth. A lot of these flights, when you go international, the flight plan doesn't entirely look like it makes any sense because, you know, if you're going to London, which is where I was flying out to internationally, Dallas is kind of the wrong way a little bit. But the reason they do this is because there's some currents in the sky, I guess, that help move the plane along with a tailwind or headwind, and so they're kind of function as international flight highways, and all they want to do is try and line up with those, and also they have to get a certain number of people to aboard these flights because these are huge planes. Most flights that we go on have like 100 people when they're domestic flights, but these international flights have 300 plus people. And so it's a big difference. And so that's kind of why they fly to these specific airports that might seem kind of backwards. But at the Boise airport, my departure time to the Dallas airport was 1:30 p.m. So we left Twin Falls at about 9:15 because it's a 2-hour drive. And we wanted to make sure we had plenty of time for us to check our bags and do anything we needed at the airport. And this is always something you want to do. Always make sure you have plenty of time, because more time means that if there's ever a problem, you can deal with it and hopefully not miss your flight. Hopefully. That first flight was delayed by 30 minutes, but this wasn't really a major cause for concern because we had about a 3-hour layover in Dallas before our flight to London. So it's not really an issue. 30 minutes delay is not really a problem there. The airline did, however, almost make us check our carry-on bags. Now, when I'm traveling domestic, I don't really mind checking my carry-on bags, but when it's an international flight, especially when you're going to be there for such a long time, it's a little bit more concerning because you want to make sure that you have a change of clothes and a bunch of different everyday items just in case your baggage gets lost. And so it's really helpful to fly with your carry-on bag and to always have access to it. And on international flights, I've never been on an international flight where they've made me check my carry-on bag. They always seem to have enough space on international planes, and they just don't always have them on domestic flights. So if you ever run into an issue where somebody's like, hey, we're going to need to check that bag, what I would suggest doing is just talking to the airline staff, letting them know that you're flying international, and a lot of times they're able to do something to help you out. I know that once before I had a similar problem, and they had put a little red tag on my bag so that once I got off the plane, that the bag was taken off with me so I didn't have to go to baggage claim, and the bag was just brought up to me in the terminal. And things like that can really be very helpful, so just make sure that you have open and clear communication with your flight staff about your needs as you're flying. Because they really do want to do their best to help you out. Just don't be a Karen or anything. Anyways, after that flight, we arrived in Dallas at 5 p.m., and that's local time. I'm not going to convert this to the time in Twin Falls because it's like way too complicated and kind of annoying. But after we arrived, my wife and I got off the plane and we grabbed some overpriced food at Einstein's Bagels. If you're traveling on a budget, I would suggest bringing in food with you. A lot of people think that you can't, but the TSA only really has a problem if either one, the food's liquid, or sometimes if it's not individually wrapped, they'll ask you a few more questions. But really, you can bring food with you as long as it's not like unsealed food. So a lot of prepackaged stuff works great. And this could be anything between like a protein bar to like gummy worms, whatever suits your fancy and fills your gut. But yeah, because, everybody knows that airport food is rather expensive. And then because we wouldn't have any ability to call or text in England, because we don't have phone service in England yet, we have to wait. We had to wait to get SIM cards in England. We made sure to contact our families to let them know that we did make it to Dallas. We are going to be boarding our flight to England, and then if they don't hear from us in the next 24 to 48 hours, we're probably still okay. And then with that all the way, we boarded our flight. It's a 9-hour flight from Dallas to London, and we left at 9 p.m. I find it kind of challenging to explain how these longer flights feel. Your trip is 9 hours, but with being so cramped and, just congested in those planes, and then also I have a condition called degenerative disc disease, which is a problem in my spine. All those things kind of put together makes it feel more like 2 days. It's a little bit my fault that the degenerative disc disease was such a problem, because I really should have just spoken with my primary care physician and been like, hey, I got this condition, you know about it. Could we get something that might be able to help me with a long flight? I didn't do that. That's my bad. That's why you can listen to my video and maybe get some advice about what to do differently when you go to travel. And then additionally, in my experience, and a lot of, comedians and stuff have a lot to say about this, but airplane meals are not that bad. I've not had airplane meals on an international flight that I thought were just terrible. If you're in the back of the plane, there's a solid chance that of the options they give you, you'll only have one. Outside of that, though, they're usually pretty filling and they taste all right. I think that people need to remember that it's really expensive to bring literally anything into the air because the cost of the fuel and all that. So they'll probably try and just make it as efficient as possible. But I've never had any problem where it's absolutely unedible. So, but I mean, of course, you can bring your snacks and you can just assume that it's going to suck, and I suppose you'll be safe that way as well. As we went to land in London, this is when our trip got a little bit crazy. So our landing in London was an emergency landing due to somebody being sick on the plane. Everything on the plane was fine except for this one person, and so it wasn't scary, but because it was an emergency landing at the London airport, we had to wait in the plane until paramedics could arrive to help with this person, and that kind of delayed us getting off the plane, which is fine, especially because my wife and I, we had our bags above the person who was unwell, who needed the ambulance, so we couldn't just go up there and push him out of the way and grab our bags. So we were very patient and we waited until it was easy enough to get off the flight and to grab our bags once most people had already left. And by the time we got off the plane, it was about 1:10 in London, and so we still had 50 minutes to get to our next flight. But here's where a whole other thing happened. When we got down the corridor, there was a stewardess standing out there with a little sign that said the flights that had been missed or canceled, and our flight from London to Manchester, which is where our host university had told us to fly into, had actually been canceled. And it was canceled because I guess the weather in Manchester, it was snowy, and while it wasn't nearly as snowy as it would have to be in Idaho for something to get canceled, it was once in 10 or 15 years crazy amount of snow in Manchester, and so it was canceled. And I don't know if you've ever been abroad. If you haven't, and you're getting ready to study abroad, it can be a little bit stressful when your plans get changed on you all of a sudden. So just take a breath. You'll get through it. There's usually ways to manage these things. And my wife, she has not been abroad before, so she was freaking out a little bit, but she was okay. She was okay. We had a good time, except for the time when we weren't having a good time. That was terrible. But besides that, we were having a great time. Anyway, so we headed to the terminal that the flight would have been out of at the advice of one of the tellers. They were saying there was a ton of people who were going to the help desk in the terminal we were in, so just head over to the other terminal, and there will be a lot less wait time to try and get help. And that person was correct. There was no wait time at that terminal. So we went up, and we went to the help desk, and we met with this lady, and we were like, hey, we were supposed to fly to Manchester at 2 p.m., and I heard our flight got canceled, and she was like, yeah, there's no flights into Manchester right now. We could probably get on a plane tomorrow. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, I have a study abroad thing. My wife and I, we have a study abroad thing. And we need to do orientation. And it's going to be like super lame if we have no idea what's going on during orientation. Is there any way we could get like a train? Because in England, they got, train systems, bus systems. And so she went on a phone call with somebody. And in the end, they were like, yeah, there's a flight at 6 for people who's missed some flights. And we're like, okay, we can probably make it till 6. And then my wife and I, we sat down because there's not really much to do in an airport. Oh, they did give us a $10 food voucher for the airport each. Well, £10, and £10 is like $12.50. The conversions are terrible. Get used to your conversions. If you're going abroad and they use a different currency, get used to your conversions because it is very difficult to tell how much you're spending on anything when you don't know your conversions. So we were sitting in this airport and we decided that we needed to contact people, and because we couldn't use cell service because we didn't have it, because we don't have SIM cards that work in the country, we just connected to the free Wi-Fi. It's sketchy. They might have been stealing information. I don't really know, but you do what you gotta do. So we connected to the free Wi-Fi. I emailed the university, our host university, Lancaster University, and I was like, hey, our flight was canceled because of snow in Manchester. We're not going to be able to make our train because we had a train that takes us from Manchester to the university. And so we're like, what should we do? What's going on here? And they were very helpful. They emailed us back. They're like, oh, my goodness, that sounds terrible. We're sorry to hear that. Could you catch a bus? And we were like, no, we couldn't catch a bus. And I found out that we could have if ours wasn't an emergency flight, emergency landing, because at 1 p.m., and we got off at 1:10, there was actually a bus that I saw in my email, which I wasn't able to access because I didn't have service, and I only just now signed into the Wi-Fi. And, we obviously missed that, so we're like, no, we missed the bus because of an emergency landing thing, and it was a whole ordeal. And she was like, okay, her name's Sarah, and she was like, okay, don't worry about it. It sounds like they got you a flight to Manchester. What we'll do is we'll get you a taxi from Manchester to the university, which is perfect because we'd missed our train because of this delay, and just getting a taxi made it so much easier. We knew they were going to take us exactly where we needed to go, and it's a little bit stressful being in a country where you don't have any service and we didn't have any physical currency because we were told not to bring the physical currency with us. That was a good idea or not, I don't know, but we didn't. And so now, my wife and I, and she was a bit shaken up at this point, but we did make our way through customs, which we thought was going to be a whole thing, and we brought a whole bunch of paperwork, and we literally just scanned our passports at automated check-in thing, and it let us right through. I suppose having a U.S. passport's nice, or maybe they just don't care that much, I don't know, but it was okay. And we went into the airport, we got to where our terminal is for this next flight, we got some food to eat, like a teriyaki rice bowl, and we boarded our flight at 6:30 p.m. To Manchester. This flight, which is, by the way, this was a 35-minute flight, but it was delayed probably half an hour till about 7 because of the snow and ice, which is okay. I'd rather them delay the flight because of the snow and ice and instead of flying us and crashing us to our death because we left and there was ice in places there shouldn't have been ice. Like, it's okay. It's fine. But we had this other delay, which was entertaining enough, and then they flew us out at 7. At about 7:40, between 7:40 and 8 o'clock, we got out of the plane, and we were good to go. We were in the airport, and everything seemed great until we were trying to get our baggage. And after about an hour, we talked to a representative, and like, yo, what's going on with the baggage thing? We've been sitting here at the baggage claim for an hour, and there's not been any bags. And they're like, oh, I'll go check on that for you. And then a few minutes later, we get an announcement over the intercoms that says that just a 40-minute wait or so, and it's due to staff shortages, and we should get our bags. And I was like, okay, cool, 40 minutes. And then 40 minutes later, they're like, about 20 minutes from now, you should be able to get your bags. Sorry about the delay and whatever. And we're like, Okay, all right, 20 more minutes. And after those 20 minutes, we did get our bags, and it was about 11 p.m. And so we took our bags and we went to the little taxi cab place that we were instructed to go to. And in about an hour and 15, an hour and 30 minutes later, we arrived at the university at 12:30 p.m. I guess a.m. at this point. Sadly for us, we didn't know the exact address of where we were supposed to go. So know the exact address of where you're supposed to go, because since we didn't know, we ended up having to walk for like half a mile in the dark, in the snow, with our suitcases to go to where we were actually supposed to go, which we did make it to. We didn't die. We were okay. So don't stress out too much if you don't know things. And then we got into our rooms, and we got to bed about 2 a.m. or so to get ready for the next day.